On the 19th of January, 1915, German airships fly from Belgium to the English coast. Nearing their target, the massive Zeppelins turn off their engines and drift quietly towards them. Then the bombs are dropped. English citizens are awoken to the sound of explosions. This bombing is the start of a devastating campaign against Britain that is often referred to as the First Blitz. Despite this campaign's psychological impact and effectiveness at destroying English cities, it is rarely discussed. On today's episode of Bet You Didn't Know History, we're diving into it. The Zeppelin, or airship, was invented by a German inventor named Count von Zeppelin. In 1900, the first Zeppelin took flight in Germany. In the period leading up to World War I, Zeppelins were not used for many things. However, at the onset of World War I, the German military wanted a way to attack enemy cities to not only destroy infrastructure, but also lower morale and support for the war. The Germans used Zeppelins to bomb Belgium as part of their invasion of the country in 1914. They then turned their attention toward raids on England. On January 15, 1915, the English coastal towns of Great Yarmouth and King's Lynn are bombed by German Zeppelins. This is the first of 52 Zeppelin raids, which will ultimately kill 556 people and injure 1,357. Many English cities will be bombed, notably London. England is paralyzed with fear. At first, the Zeppelins seem unstoppable. They can fly at around 13,000 feet, higher than almost all British fighter aircraft. However, the Royal Air Force begins equipping their planes with explosive and incendiary ammunition. Anti-aircraft batteries are also created. Zeppelins start to be shot down regularly, with 77 out of the Germans' fleet of 115 shot down by 1917. The Germans had to adapt. On June 13, 1917, London is bombed in broad daylight by Gotha bombers. These airplanes are much more effective than their Zeppelin counterpart. For one thing, the Gotha is more maneuverable than the Zeppelin, and also much faster. Gothas are also a smaller target for anti-aircraft batteries, and are not filled with volatile hydrogen, like Zeppelins. In addition to these things, the Gotha is cheaper and easier to produce than the Zeppelin. The crew is also much smaller than the Zeppelins, consisting of only a pilot, a nose gunner, and a tail gunner. The Gotha is also heavily armed. Fully loaded, the Gotha carries a little over 1,000 pounds of explosives. 2 Parabellum machine guns are attached as well, to repel attacks by British fighter planes. The first raid on June 13, 1917 is devastating. 20 Gothas dropped approximately 100 bombs, killing 162 civilians and injuring countless others. Among the dead were 18 children, who were killed when a bomb struck their school. After this incident, King George V changes the royal family's last name from Saxe-Coburg-Gotha to Windsor. This is due to growing anti-German sentiments after the bombings, and because the name Gotha is also the name of the bombers which carried out the attacks. This will be the most deadly of all the bombing raids on England until the Blitz in 1941. The Germans will continue their bombing of England, but increased air defenses will decrease the German bombers' effectiveness. Ultimately, the Germans turn back to night raids, which continue until the end of the war. After the Gotha, the Germans also introduced the Zeppelinstaaken, a plane with 4 engines that is so large its size is only surpassed at the end of the Second World War. This plane is also very unique for its time, as it has an enclosed cockpit allowing for the crew to fly as high as the plane's engineering allows, and not have to worry about the air getting too thin for them to breathe. The Zeppelinstaaken holds over 4,000 pounds of bombs and has 4 Parabellum machine guns to defend itself from fighter aircraft. However, even this behemoth did not stop Germany's inevitable defeat. In the end, around 1,400 people are killed and over 3,000 are injured by the German air raids. Millions of pounds in damage is caused to cities, and the psychological effect on the English people is great. The most people to have ever taken refuge in the London Underground stations was over 300,000, but this was not during the Blitz in 1941, but rather between May 1917 and 1918. Some British Army recruitment posters even include the saying, "It is far better to face the bullets than to be killed at home by a bomb." A new kind of warfare is also introduced with these German air raids, a kind of total warfare, where even civilians hundreds of miles away from the battlefield could be targets.
Bet you didn't know that.
If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing.